Good afternoon, Alabama. My name is Maria Garnett. I am from Richmond. Well, I'm from Texas. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I am a state government policy professional, currently serving as a policy advisor for the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. I don't know if any of you all like the show Parks and Rec, but my vanity license plate says government gal. So that's a little bit about me. This is my third year being involved with We the People.
Hi,
Petra.
everyone. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Petra Al-Sufing. I am in Michigan, from Michigan. I am the Outreach and Partnerships Manager at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. We're a research and education group that does research on American Muslims and other faith communities. I'm also on the board of the Michigan Center for Civic Education. And about 17 years ago, I was a participant in We the People. So I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon and to see you participate.
Good afternoon, Alabama. My name is Dan Wong. I'm a retired attorney and former judge. I'm on the National Board of Directors for the Center for Civic Education, and I live in Boise, Idaho. I am very excited to be able to listen to your testimony today.
So please go ahead and introduce yourselves and your teacher.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Barrama, and I'll be attending the University of Indiana and majoring in economics.
Hello, my name is Jason DeRusso. I will be attending the University of Southern California, where I will study international relations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Shaw. I will be attending Boston University and studying economics. Our teacher is Miss Amy Maddox. Thank you for having us, and we are very excited to be here today.
Great. So I'm going to dive right in with our Unit 6 question. Thomas Hobbes noted that life in a state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. How has the human condition changed over time? And how is that change reflected in our expectations of government? Should the principles of natural rights or classical republicanism guide policy changes designed to improve the condition of all people? And what are the most pressing domestic and global challenges facing Americans today and in the future? What policies can you suggest to address them? You may begin.
Thank you. Since Jefferson first advocated for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the definition of what constitutes pursuit of happiness has expanded. Thereby, government has adapted to fulfill these needs in order to create an environment in which citizens can thrive. For example, during the Panic of 1873, the U.S. passed the Coinage Act that year in order to stabilize the monetary economic policy, but there was no expectation for a safety net. In contrast, during the Great Depression, the magnitude of the problem forced the national government to create a safety net through President Roosevelt's New Deal. This change of expectations is reflected in a reaction to the 2008 economic crisis and the 2020 recession, where the people immediately expected government to intervene. Thomas Hobbes argued in Leviathan that every man in the state of nature would act in self-interest, and hence society would be chaos. In contrast, John Locke believed that the dangers of the state of nature were the violations of individual rights, such as life, liberty, and property. However, we believe that society is much more complicated than that. Although paradoxical, policy should be guided by both natural rights and classical republicanism. Individual freedoms are crucial in a democratic society, but as Justice Wendell Holmes stated, the right to swing my fist ends where the other man's nose begins.
Throughout the American experience, we can see occurrences where classical republicanism and natural rights coexist. For instance, when writing the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson listed demands for the protection of natural rights and introduced the idea of classical republicanism by discussing a social contract. In the American Constitution, the delegates granted the government the necessary power to rule and protect the common good. Later, the Bill of Rights was added to protect individual natural rights. Additionally, the 14th Amendment protects natural rights through classical republicanism and reinforces Aristotle's belief that a happy human being is one that has developed his unique human excellence as a result of living in community.
Alexis de Tocqueville once stated, "Americans often look upon social authority with an eye of mistrust and anxiety, but it is in time of crisis when our expectations of government increase." For example, the coronavirus pandemic has dominated our daily lives over the past year. Much has been done in order to return our lives to a sense of normalcy, but we are still many months away from those circumstances. With the passage of the CARES Act in 2020 and the America Rescue Plan Act in 2021, the government has taken major steps towards putting an end to this pandemic by providing safety nets and funding for states to roll out vaccines.
Additionally, according to the State Department, climate change is a threat that will affect infrastructure, domestic migration, and international asylum. Therefore, rejoining the Paris Agreement was a great first step in fighting climate change. We can work on legislation such as the Green New Deal, which aims to meet American power demand through zero-emission energy sources and create jobs for those in the fossil fuel industry.
At home, increased hyperpartisanship in government has led to a persistent us versus them mentality that prevents us from further improving the lives of Americans. Because of these developments, domestic conflict is increased as each side attempts to force their beliefs upon others, as with the storming of the Capitol building on January 6th and the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. In order to alleviate this issue, we can educate the public about civics and ethics. Programs such as We the People guide us to understand our rights as citizens as well as our duties, and it helps to create an environment in which civil discourse can prevail.
Throughout both world and American history, expectations of government have adapted to fit evolving circumstances of society. The many shifts seen throughout history occurred because of the dynamic nature of our expectations. Even with the many challenges we face currently and will face in the future, protecting natural rights for all persons should be the central goal of government. Thank you, and we're now ready for questions.
Great, thank you so much. So can you all talk about how, there was a mention that you said about how the 14th Amendment ensures natural rights through classical republicanism, I think is how you said it. Could you expound on that a little bit more? And then give some other examples of specific provisions in the Constitution that allow this dual approach to happen?
Yeah. As we mentioned in our opening statement, with that a famous quote by Judge Holmes, a lot of our natural rights are threatened by other people in the what Hobbes and Locke would call the state of nature, and the 14th Amendment grants kind of like an addendum to that social contract in which the government is protecting the rights, equal rights to all people, and the protection of those to due process.
Okay. You indicated in your testimony that partisanship was a pressing domestic challenge, and your solution was to educate the public regarding civics and ethics, citing We the People program. The We the People program is designed for high school students. What about adults? What can be done to educate the adult public regarding civics and ethics? I mean, how are you going to force an adult to study civics and ethics? Any ideas?
Yeah, we agree that the program of We the People is very limited. We have the privilege to be a part of it, but unfortunately not many people know about it. As we've seen through studies, many adults by the time they reach 30, they are very unlikely to change their opinions. That's why we highly advocate for the institutions of civics and ethics programs in high school. And as also we know that not everyone goes to college to have those programs since high school, and being educated on how to be a responsible citizen and how to create civil discourse when reaching adulthood.
Yeah, so this is a really difficult question to answer. Of course, there's no way to actually force people or adults to continue learning on their own in a straightforward manner. So I think that the way the hope in We the People is to have these lasting ways to that we learn throughout school and the lessons, so that it can continue along with us, and so we remember how to educate ourselves on the current events and the government in society. But I think that once you're an adult, it becomes difficult, and with like all the media outlets providing sometimes false information. So I think that there's definitely a responsibility, especially if you're a voter, and to be an informed citizen and try to keep up with the current events.
I believe that in order to ensure that adults are able to learn about civics and ethics and practice that. I believe that companies should be not required, but at least given like a strong argument for, or to ensure that their employers employees, sorry, follow through and treat their clients kindly.
Thank you. I'm gonna kind of stick on that topic. So it seems that for a well-functioning democracy, we need informed citizens, but we are also seeing, as you all mentioned, a growing partisan and a growing misinformation. Um, uh, and so you have suggested some ways to address it. I want to understand from you what you think the role of the government should be in combating misinformation, um, in addressing the partisanship that exists, and what are the limits to the government's role.
Yeah, I think there's very limited things that the government can do addressing partisanship, because it would be basically the parties voting on whether or not that system should remain. And as we know, they want to kind of stay to the status quo. But I think that's why our hopes are in the citizens, because that's a culture we can change through education, hopefully. And addressing the news, I think that the creation of echo chambers makes it really hard, and I think that the government should make regulations on what on social media sites like Twitter and Facebook that have been known for voter misinformation.
Yeah, so I mean, just first of all, like the current situation of like from a Pew Research Center survey, it's around, I think, 75% of Americans, their trust in the federal government has been shrinking, that distrust in the government and each other. This gets in the way of solving issues. So I think that if it's at this large of a percentage, it would be this is going to be a very slow and tedious manner in facing the issue. I think that the government, like my fellow member Ali said, the use of social media and some restrictions on the false information that can be spread. But on the partisanship aspect of this problem, I think that within Congress itself, there's definitely a decreasing amount of trust from the current common population, and I think that just the more people, as we talked about before, becoming more informed, and then that leading to the electing representatives, electing your legislators, and then hopefully enacting slow but positive change throughout.
Yeah, and adding to what Hannah said about distrust in the government and each other, actually something that Thomas Hobbes argued in Leviathan was that theory of contractarianism, and something that he said is that people would act as rational people, as civilized people, and engage in what in economics we call a game theory. However, he argued that it is very unlikely that people play game theory in a way that benefits everyone if they don't know each other. And I think that something that Mr. Putnam argues in his book Bowling Alone is how we've lost kind of that sense of community in America. And I think that creating more social programs where we can engage with our neighbors and create a civil discourse would really help strengthen our democracy and civil discourse.
I believe that the government should have the ability to ensure that the public is able to understand other different points of view in order to project the common good, because if they're able to better understand where people are coming from, they can make better decisions based on like how other people could respond to that, but not so much to the point that they infringe on the natural rights of the people they're trying to convince.
But how would the government do that? Make sure people do a better job of understanding one another. That sounds like a very esoteric idea.
I think that the government, in order to do that, the government can encourage schools to instill those.
And that's time.
Let me finish my thought. Okay,
Thank you.
I believe that the government should at least encourage. Sorry.
Yeah, it's time for judges.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yes. Excellent job. You know, you all have a sort of smaller team, and I thought you did a great job bouncing off of one another. And each of you brought a slightly different perspective to the table when you were answering a lot of our questions. And I always really appreciate seeing that, because that shows me that, you know, you as a person are bringing your own thoughts and experience to this exercise that you're doing. You know, there were definitely some really strong examples, but I really wish that you would have explained it all the way, you know, so how specifically, or, you know, what in the 14th Amendment specifically guarantees or promises due process or the equal protection of law. I'd like a little bit more specificity when you're citing examples, whether from constitutional history and, you know, legal history in the United States, et cetera, so that I know that it's not just a name that you memorized, for example, that you really do understand what you're telling me. So again, you all spoke clearly. It was easy to understand you, and you shared the responsibility really well. So I hope that you feel great about the job that you've done today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, I really enjoyed listening to your presentation. I really like that you presented different views and didn't really stay just scripted the whole time. And the fact that you all participated, I thought that was really, really nice. And it showed that you actually do have an understanding of the topic beyond the opening statement. So the only thing is, as Maria mentioned, I wish there was a little bit more evidence presented to your thoughts and your opinion on the topic. And I wish you took the question all the way. So the questions we asked, you know, what can the government do and what are some of the limits? I didn't hear any of the limits or the danger of the government doing too much. You know, things like, you know, I was trying to hear forwards like propaganda or censorship. You spoke a lot about people getting to know each other in education, which is great. I wish we went a little bit beyond that. Otherwise, I think you guys worked really well and, you know, together, and your opening statement was strong, and your follow-up questions, you really gave them your understanding. So I appreciate that.
I enjoyed your presentation. I enjoyed your 4-minute testimony. I very much appreciated your testimony regarding how natural rights and classical republicanism was able to coexist, and how the founders attempted to bring aspects of both of those into the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. I did especially enjoy your discussion regarding the climate change and the partisanship that we're experiencing. I will tell you that I just found out recently that United Way of Southwest Louisiana actually conducts an adult We the People program, and they have for a couple of years. I'm excited to look more into it. My sister-in-law here in Boise is the executive director of the United Way of the Treasure Valley, and so I've already told her that I'm going to research this and present it to her to see if our local United Way would do an adult We the People program. It's patterned, I'm told, somewhat after the youth program. So there is a possibility for adults out there, if we can find the appropriate sponsoring agency to, in fact, do some adult education, because I agree with you that adult education, I mean, we can't force them to do anything, but the more we have adults who are, and up and coming young adults, such as yourself, that are more in tune to the requirements of civics and ethics, the much better off we will be. I enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that concludes everything. Thank you, and good luck through the rest of the weekend. and have a
Thank you so
lovely
much.
evening.